It was an ordinary afternoon, until it wasn't. The street was busy, cars rushing past, people lost in their own worlds, not noticing the little life lying still on the sidewalk. I might have missed him too, if it weren't for the way the sunlight caught his fur. A tiny white puppy, curled into himself, as if trying to disappear. He didn't move when I stepped closer. He didn't even lift his head from where I stood. I could see his ribs, the fragile rise and fall of his breathing. His fur was matted, tangled with dirt, and his eyes, oh, his eyes, they weren't bright and curious like most puppies. They were tired, old, in a way no puppy should ever be. I crouched down slowly, careful not to startle him. "Hey, little one," I whispered. No reaction, just a faint twitch of his ear. I reached into my bag, pulled out a small piece of bread I'd bought earlier. At first, he didn't move. Then, with trembling effort, he lifted his head and sniffed the air. That's when I saw it, the tiniest spark of hope. It took a few minutes of gentle coaxing before he took his first cautious bite. The way he chewed, slow, deliberate, as if each movement cost him energy, broke my heart. Right there, in the middle of the sidewalk, I knew I couldn't leave him. I wrapped him gently in my jacket and carried him to my car. As I drove toward the nearest veterinary clinic, I kept glancing over at him. His eyes were half closed, but every so often, he would look up at me, as if to say, "Is this real? Am I safe now?" At the clinic, the vet's expression told me everything before she even spoke. "Malnourished, dehydrated, and he's got a few ticks," she said softly, running a careful hand over his tiny frame. "They started with fluids to rehydrate him, then gave him a gentle bath. The water that ran off him turned a murky brown, a mix of dust, oil, and weeks of neglect." He didn't fight. He didn't cry. He just sat there, letting the warm water wash over him. When the vet began removing the ticks, he winced a little, but never once tried to pull away. Almost as if he understood that we were helping. After his bath, they gave him a small bowl of warm chicken broth. This time, he ate with a little more enthusiasm. I stayed by his side the whole time, talking to him in a soft voice, letting him know he wasn't alone anymore. The first night, at night, I set up a cozy bed for him in my living room, a soft blanket, a small pillow, and a plush toy my other dog had outgrown. I expected him to sleep immediately, but instead, he kept glancing around the room, as if trying to understand where he was. Finally, he curled up on the blanket, pressing his tiny body against the toy, and fell into a deep, peaceful sleep. I sat nearby, just watching. In the quiet, I thought about how many dogs like him are out there right now, cold, hungry, unseen. And I promised myself, this one will never feel that way again. Days into weeks, the first week was all about recovery. I fed him small meals, several times a day. We visited the vet regularly for checkups, vaccinations, and a deworming treatment. Every day, I could see a little more life returning to his eyes. He started wagging his tail when I entered the room. He barked for the first time, a tiny, raspy sound that made me laugh out loud. By the second week, I introduced him to my other dog. I was cautious, unsure how they'd react, but to my surprise, they clicked instantly. Within minutes, they were chasing each other around the living room, tails wagging, paws skittering on the floor. It was the first time I'd seen him play. Discovering the world a month later, he was a different dog. His fur had grown soft and clean. His eyes were bright, curious, and full of mischief. We went for walks in the park, where he sniffed every blade of grass as if it were the most fascinating thing in the world. He loved meeting other dogs, wagging his tail at everyone we passed. One sunny afternoon, I decided to take both dogs to the big park on the other side of the city. We spent hours exploring, running through open fields, splashing in shallow ponds, chasing after falling leaves. I watched him bounding through the grass, ears flopping, tongue lolling out in pure joy. And I thought, this is what every dog deserves, the bond. He became my shadow. Wherever I went, he followed, to the kitchen, to the garden, even to the bathroom door. At night, He'd curl up at my feet or rest his head on my lap while I read. Sometimes, I'd wake up to find him sleeping on my chest, his tiny heartbeat steady and strong. I didn't just rescue him, he became part of my life, my family, my story. 1 month later, on the exact day marking 1 month since I found him, I planned something special, a little celebration, just us, my other dog, and a small cake made of his favorite treats. I placed a tiny party hat on his head, and he sat there, wagging his tail, looking at me with eyes full of trust and love. We played in the yard until the sun went down. I watched him chasing after my other dog, barking happily, his white fur glowing in the golden light. It was hard to believe that just a month ago, he was lying on a cold sidewalk, alone and hopeless. The ending, or the beginning, as the stars began to appear in the night sky. He curled up beside me, resting his head on my arm. I stroked his fur and whispered, "You're home now, forever." In that quiet moment, I realized something. I didn't just save his life, he saved mine. From the rush, from the noise, from forgetting what truly matters, and together, we began a new chapter.